It's Thursday, September 23rd, and this is now on H&N.
Punched him twice, and I think it was over a face mask, but I'm not 100% sure.
New at noon, a passenger punches a Hawaiian Airlines flight attendant. This comes as the country sees a record surge in violent incidents.
The Department of Justice needs to look at how these individuals can be criminally prosecuted.
This video just in, the wedding industry rallies in response to the recent extension of the gathering ban.
Our message is a cry for help.
These stories plus new details on Tiger King 2. That's coming up on This Is Now.
Apparently had an altercation with the flight attendant where he, according to the flight attendant that was on board, another flight attendant punched him twice. And I think it was over a face mask, but I'm not 100% sure. Once that happened, the pilot came on and basically said, we have to turn around and go back to Honolulu.
Good afternoon. We begin today on This Is Now with some trouble in the skies.
A Hilo-bound Hawaiian Airlines flight was forced to divert back to Honolulu after a passenger punched a flight attendant, officials said. According to a Hawaiian Airlines spokesperson, Flight 152 departed the Daniel K. Inouye International Airport around 7:30 this morning. Soon after takeoff, the passenger assaulted one of our flight attendants who was walking down the aisle in an unprovoked incident, said the spokesman. Now, a pilot rerouted the plane back to Honolulu, where it landed at around 8 this morning. I spoke to Bill Paris, who was on that plane, and he shared video of authorities escorting the passenger off the plane upon landing. He said everyone was shocked. The incident comes as leaders in the aviation industry are testifying before Congress today about an alarming surge in unruly airline passengers. Errol Barnett has the latest from Washington.
Airline and flight attendant representatives are pleading with Congress to do more to keep air travel safe for everyone.
My colleagues are anxious and fearful. What is going to happen on the next flight? How will this passenger react if I remind them to wear their mask?
The number of unruly passenger incidents on flights surged during the pandemic, most over passengers refusing to wear a mask. A recent survey found 85% of flight attendants have dealt with unruly passengers this year, and 1 in 5 reported a physical incident. Sarah Nelson with the Association of Flight Attendants testified flights that originate in the South have been a particular problem.
We have had a lot of incidents out of Charlotte. We have had a lot of incidents out of the Florida airports and out of Texas. People have been led to believe that we're in conflict with each other.
The Federal Aviation Administration implemented a zero-tolerance policy and fines earlier this year when it became clear air travel in an ongoing pandemic was becoming unpredictable. As a result, the number of unruly incidents per flight decreased, but has recently plateaued. The FAA says Southwest and American Airlines suspending alcohol service has also helped, so it is now asking airports to limit drink-to-go orders.
Only airline employees, and specifically gate agents, can deny boarding to passengers.
Right, so they're going to have to do breathalyzers. All right, thanks.
The FAA and the Department of Justice need to conduct swift but thorough enforcement investigations. They need to impose at least civil penalties against those passengers. And if those civil penalties are not deterring really criminal activity by these airline passengers, that the Department of Justice needs to look at how these individuals can be criminally prosecuted.
There have been more than 4,300 air rage incidents so far this year and counting. Errol Barnett, CBS News, Washington.
The state today reported 445 new COVID-19 infections and 12 additional fatalities. The new cases pushed the statewide total number of infections to 76,966. Meanwhile, the new fatalities bring the state's death toll to 738. So far this month, Hawaii has recorded 149 COVID-related deaths alone. Of the new infections reported, 267 were on Oahu, 81 were on Hawaii Island, 52 on Maui, 30 on Kauai, 7 on Molokai, and there are also 8 residents diagnosed out of state.
We got this new video in of a rally downtown in protest to Oahu's gathering ban extension. The Wedding Association held this at the state capitol just a short time ago. The group is upset about the ban on professional events. Leaders say large weddings are not social gatherings. Currently, weddings fall under the gathering limit of 10 people indoors and 25 outdoors. Here's Joseph Esser, one of the event organizers.
You know, we're calling on our leaders to make this distinction between social gatherings and professionally managed events. When you think of a professionally managed event, you know, we can do so many of the known safety protocols and measures to make our community safe when we have events. Well, the unfortunate thing that's happening right now is there's all these rogue events happening on the island, and they're not run by professionals. They're unsafe. And that's just a result of these mandates. So please let the wedding industry, you know, bring back safety to events on the island.
The authors of a study in the medical journal The Lancet say they're worried about gaps in Hawaii's travel testing. They're also worried about breakthrough infections amongst the vaccinated and say that routine asymptomatic testing is one of the biggest missed opportunities.
It misses people that are infected.
UH adjunct professor Lee Altenberg wrote a letter to The Lancet, which was then published updating the original study, which did not include the Delta variants and vaccinations. Altenberg says the virus can leak through testing, especially now with the Delta variant, and that Hawaii's Safe Travels pre-testing protocol may be detecting only 20% of infected travelers.
So that's the simplified way of putting it. The precise way of putting it is that the total exposure of the destination population, namely the residents of Hawaii, from COVID-infected travelers is reduced by the pre-travel test by about 20%, compared to if there was no test and no quarantine.
He believes everyone flying in should be tested regardless of vaccination status.
When they also tested a strategy where you add a quarantine of 5 days and a second test to get out of it, they found that that strategy reduced the exposure by 84%.
Altenberg says tourists are not the main source of infection, but do contribute to it. How much, nobody knows. Studies do show they've got little incentive to test while on vacation.
If they test positive, it ruins their whole vacation.
This virus is mutating kind of in front of our eyes.
Dr. Dara O'Carroll, an emergency physician, believes data shows pre-travel testing needs to be beefed up to keep the economy going.
If Hawaii is going to and continue and needs to be reliant on travel, we need to really take a hard look at what the actual science is saying rather than, you know, keeping our heads in the sand.
Governor Ige's office says there are no changes to the Safe Travels program, though he has said in the past that the CDC has said it is safe for travelers to fly if they're vaccinated, so it would be hard to force them to be tested.
So there was a really interesting discussion today on Sunrise with Daniel Ross. He's the head of the Hawaii Nursing Association. I want to play out a portion of that interview he had with Grace and Steve.
It's gotten a lot better than it was a couple of weeks ago. We were verging into crisis. We had a couple of moments where things got really bad. Right now, it's gotten better, and with all these FEMA travel nurses here, it's doable in the acute care setting at this time. So, yeah, to lighten things up, it's too soon. We could go over the edge very quickly. Because it's still very full, it's very busy, and if we did not have all these extra nurses in the hospital, we would be in disaster right now.
Yeah, and can you comment on that, the work that they've done, these healthcare workers from the mainland? How crucial were they in getting things under control?
Very crucial, you know, and it's still the med surge level. You know, you've got basically in acute care the 2 levels. You have med surge, which can be med surge tele, and ICU level of care. And in the med surge level, things are adequate with staffing now. I think it's still a little bit rough in the ICUs, but better. Without them, we would have been drowning we wouldn't have been able to do it. I think we would have definitely had to institute the triage of care, which is a last case resort that no one wants to have to go to. So without them, that most likely would have happened. The problem we're seeing now is in our long-term care facilities, because they don't have any of the FEMA nurses, and it's a desperate struggle for staffing there. It's all part of the same continuum.
Daniel, my understanding is that these FEMA nurses are only here for a certain amount of time. There's not another wave of them coming, right? So we could be in trouble how soon?
It's possible. They came in at Queens anyway. They came in 3 different waves. So the first one is going to, in 2 or 3 weeks, I believe their contracts will be coming up. Maybe a little bit more. I don't have the date in front of me when it goes up. So the hope is, and by the projections, is that the numbers will be coming down and we'll be able to deal with that. And Queens can still, or the other hospitals too, can still bring in more travelers as needed, because it's not just the FEMA nurses. The hospitals hired their own travelers too. So the FEMA nurses are travel nurses that are being funded by the government. But the hospitals also have more travelers than just the FEMA nurses, ones that they've brought in themselves. So as it goes down, they're watching it. In our meetings last night, they told us by their projections, they think there will be another rise. They think it'll continue to slowly drop. And in December, they're predicting another rise, but their projection shows it not to be a big surge, but a slow climb, which would be a lot easier to handle and deal with than this one that came on us relatively quickly.
Yeah, we're speaking to Daniel Ross, the head of the Hawaii Nurses Association. And the good news, Daniel, is that we, the general public, have some control over that. And I think we go over numbers a lot, and I think they're very effective in getting us an understanding and how important it is to get vaccinated and to take all these precautions. But sometimes I think the viewer needs to really understand what you and your colleagues see on a day-to-day basis. What can you tell us about the stress level within the hospitals and your experience and those of your friends?
Well, it's extremely stressful, and it's extremely frustrating when we see people in the public denying that it exists. You know, we still have deniers out there, people who say that it's false. We've heard claims that, oh, Queens isn't even full. Well, Queens was overflowing. Queens was full before we had COVID. And it's, you know, we've been doing this for over a year and a half now. We've been dealing with this, and it had gotten pretty well under control, and then it went as bad as it's been recently. That's the worst it's got. It got very scary when ICUs. There were moments in ICU where one ICU nurse had 4 patients. They did it for a whole shift of having 3 patients. That's totally it's unacceptable. Something we don't want to ever see happen.
Developing news, tensions with China are rising even more one day after Taiwan officials agreed to enter a free trade agreement with 11 Pacific Rim nations. Want to turn it over to Will Ripley to explain exactly what's happening here.
In the latest sign of escalating tensions across the Taiwan Strait, this island's Ministry of National Defense reporting the largest incursion of Chinese warplanes into Taiwan's self-declared air defense identification zone since mid-June. On Thursday morning and afternoon local time, the Ministry of National Defense here in Taiwan says that 24 Chinese fighter jets, bombers, and other military aircraft entered Taiwan's ADIZ, which is essentially a buffer zone between the island's sovereign airspace, which extends 12 nautical miles from its coast, and international airspace. When aircraft enter a nation's ADIZ, air traffic control will often ask them to identify themselves and also alert the military of a possible incoming threat. But by staying in the ADIZ and not actually getting so close to Taiwan to violate its sovereign airspace, Beijing is not violating international law here. What they are doing, Taipei says, is bullying and intimidating this self-governing island of 23 million people, an island that has its own democratically elected government, its own military, and an island that mainland China continues to claim as its own sovereign territory, as it has for more than 70 years since the end of China's civil war. Beijing doesn't like it when Taiwan tries to assert itself on a global stage, and Taipei says it's no coincidence that this latest act of military intimidation comes just one day after Taiwan applied to join a major Pacific trade agreement that China is also trying to be a part of. Taiwan accusing Beijing of trying to block its participation in this trade deal and other regional and global bodies because Beijing doesn't think that Taiwan's government is legitimate and therefore should not be representing itself when mainland China says Taiwan is a part of China, a claim that Taiwan and its government firmly rejects. Taiwan has been showcasing its own military strength in recent weeks. Just last week, they staged a live-fire military exercise, landing fighter jets on highways as part of a drill simulating Taiwan's response to a potential Chinese invasion. President Biden will be talking China at the White House with leaders of the Quad nations of Australia, Japan, and India. The number one topic on the agenda expected to be how to counter China's rising assertiveness in this region. And Taiwan is vowing to beef up its military spending to try to counter China's massive military budget. Will Ripley, CNN, Taiwan.
Thanks, Will. Back here in the H&N Digital Center, we just got some breaking news in regarding the pandemic, right, Mahia?
That's right. The U.S. vaccination drive against COVID-19 is poised for a major new phase. Government advisors just recommended booster doses of Pfizer's vaccine for millions of Americans. This despite concern that the extra shots will do little to slow the pandemic. Advisors to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommended the extra doses for people 65 and older, nursing home residents, and those ages 50 to 60 with underlying medical conditions once they're at least 6 months past their last Pfizer dose. It also said people ages 18 to 49 with underlying conditions could choose a booster.
All right, want to take you live outside. There's a little rain coming down earlier in this live video feed, but things are clearing up right now. Let's turn it over to Guy Hoggy, who's going to look into his crystal ball and give us a glimpse of that weekend that is almost here. Here's Guy.
How's it on this Thursday? The textbook trade wind weather continues, and of course that does include some wind and Malka showers in the morning and overnight hours. Rainfall total is kind of insignificant because the trade winds are going to be running brisk and breezy, and that moves the showers along, and that doesn't allow for big rainfall buildups. Of course, lighter winds over in the Kona side of the Big Island. So it's going to be a beautiful day today. A few clouds, a few showers in the morning, drier by midday, and those winds running nice and swift, and they'll be swift for the next several days. And that means it's going to be a little choppy in the windward side. As we're looking at a swell that has peaked on the south shore, maybe some head high sets, not a big swell, but it's pretty good fun. And then that current swell in the country is on the way down. But a bigger swell is due in by tomorrow, although it's going to be below advisory levels. It's a sign that the seasons are changing for sure. Now, the weather's not going to change very much over the next several days. The breezy winds will hold firm through Saturday, getting stronger on Sunday and Monday. And that means the typical trade wind conditions will continue as well. Morning showers, lots of afternoon sunshine, high temperatures running to near 90, and that's going on into next week. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
New today, tours to the USS Arizona have resumed. This comes after dock issues shut them down for more than 2 weeks. Billy V has the details.
Thank you very much. We're here at the Pearl Harbor Visitor Center. For 10 days, the public could not go to the USS Arizona Memorial. That's because there was work that needed to be done. Emily Pruitt, who is a park ranger here with the National Park Service, told us why.
So behind me, there's 2 orange cones. Underneath there is where the steel column was that was disconnected from the shoreside dock. Over time, wakes and tides contributed to this damage. And the National Park Service, working with NAVFAC engineers, was able to assess the issue and come up with proposed fixes and then make those adjustments so that we could get the programs up and running again.
With the work completed, they're inviting everyone to come out and check out the USS Arizona Memorial. By the way, just a reminder that if you're coming here, leave your bags at home. Make sure you're wearing your masks no matter what your vaccination status is. From Pearl Harbor, I'm Billy V. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Billy V. Let's see what the internet is chatting about today. All right. Everyone saw Tiger King, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
love it.
I thought it was super interesting. Well, Tiger King is returning to Netflix. Yep, the streaming service just announced it's working on Tiger King 2. Yep, the second season of the docuseries has already been shot, we're told, and is slated to be released sometime this year.
Ooh, can't wait.
Netflix has not shared, though, if the characters from season 1 will be featured this time. Again, everyone knows what Tiger King's about, right? Joe Exotic, Carol Baskin, and that murder for hire plot. And it created a lot of buzz, made some instant celebrities overnight, and I'm really interested to see where they take it because Joe Exotic's in jail. Right?
Yeah, he's in jail. So
maybe they do phone interviews, jailhouse interviews. We haven't seen
written
yet.
letters. We just want more of Joe.
Yeah, fascinating.
Well, Kenny Rogers is being honored in a star-studded concert special, Kenny Rogers, All In for the Gambler. The show was filmed in Nashville before the country music legend died. It features performances by Chris Stapleton, Little Big Town, Lady A, and many other big names in country music. Kenny Rogers himself also performs a duet with Dolly Parton. The concert special airs tonight on KGMB. You can also find it on Paramount+.
A tribute to Kenny there. He passed away sometime last year, right? Correct?
Always will miss him.
Yeah, it's a good tribute to him, and always loving me some Dolly. So Britney Spears is back in the news. Never left, really, right?
Britney, no. Netflix has released a trailer for a new documentary about Britney Spears and her conservatorship battle. The film promises exclusive interviews, documents, texts, and voicemails. Britney versus Spears will drop on Netflix September 28th. And I've got to admit, I watch her on Instagram. She's always dancing and twirling around.
Yeah, I mean, in that last documentary that the New York Times put out, whoa, what a bombshell interview. And I will definitely check out this one. Everyone's been following Britney's saga with what's going on with her dad. I mean, every day on TMZ, there's another headline, I believe. So, all right, you guys, yesterday we were talking about Joan Rivers and Katherine Hahn, you know, the star from WandaVision. She is playing and executive producing a new Showtime show about the life of the legendary red carpet star Joan Rivers. So I promised you yesterday, I'd give you a little fun fact here on This Is Now, that Mahea used to be Joan Rivers' intern. Look at this flashback, Throwback Thursday photo. I love this, man. Tell us a little insight about Joan Rivers.
That was, you see the date there, 1993. That's my letter of recommendation from Joan Rivers herself. But that picture was at the final party for the summer. I was an intern for her show. And, you know, we used to bring the guests in back and forth. And Joan was an amazing woman. And I did have to run a personal errand for her, too, Jonathan. It was kind of like, you know, okay, I was in college. My eyes were wide open. And I guess Joan needed a wedding present wrapped up by her special wrapper maker or whatever. So they had a black limousine pick me up, take me to the wrapping store, and pick up this, I don't know, crystal bowl kind of thing and take it to her house, her condominium in downtown New York. And it was amazing.
Well, I got to ask, because you hear horror stories about celebrities, and especially the high-profile ones. Was she nice?
Oh, yeah. She was really, really nice. And I have to say, her condominium was the most ornate place I had ever seen. It was gold everywhere, artwork everywhere. Everything just looked so large, and I couldn't believe it.
Well, I love that story. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
Sorry if I embarrassed you in any way with that flashback photo.
That was old photos.
You guys, that's going to do it for This Is Now. Sorry I misspoke just a few seconds ago. Kenny Rogers actually passed away in 2020, but this tribute tonight sounds awesome on KGMB, so you won't want to miss that. You guys, that's going to do it for This Is Now. I'll be back tomorrow with more news, and we're almost to that weekend. We'll see you then. Have a great afternoon, everyone.